from Aurora, Colorado, because they're not from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, because they're not from any of these white townships in Boston, Massachusetts, then many of you really don't care. You don't even want me talking about it. But Muhammad, why are you talking about? They just Muslims. They just some sand jiggers. You know what you really want to say. They really don't count is what you want to say. Because you say God bless America, but God shouldn't bless the rest of the world. God shouldn't bless little black and brown women and children, in the words of Dr. King. How is it that you can be the children of the civil rights movement, heirs to the greatest movement that we've had in this country, and you can say be nonviolent to little black and brown children in Cherry Hill, but not be nonviolent for little black and brown children in Afghanistan because they live in a village? See, if it's in Emerson Village, Dutch Village, or some of these other villages, if they were up there in that fine village up there in New York City that everybody likes to talk about, then you'd be concerned. But this is Afghan women and children and men killed. Civilians. Let me make that clear. But let me come to the line, take your thoughts, questions, comments, and you haven't heard most of your news media touch this story. Black or white. Black or white. And this should have been taken to the UN. Because if they can do it to them, they know that they'll do it to you. Let me come to the line. Good afternoon, caller. You're on the State of the City.
Walaikum.
Walaikum salam. Thoughts and comments on this, my brother?
Yes, sir. You said something about the morality. Well, it's all about morality to me. Because having been in the armed services,
yes,
I saw and witnessed firsthand immorality.
Yes, sir.
All those dynamics of immorality are in place, and the immorality is shown in the injustice system. It's called the military justice system. The immorality of America is the disease of America that will cause America not to be successful.
Right. Well, I haven't heard a response from the president regarding this. Have you? I haven't seen a response.
He's not going to say anything. He's not going to say anything. Look, whatever he says is not going to change the paradigm.
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's the meat of the thing. Whatever he says,
yes, sir,
not going to change the paradigm.
Okay.
So if his handlers agree to him coming out sounding hard,
yes,
you
sir.
know,
right.
There's no substance to the word.
Yes, sir. So got a lot of symbolism, but no substance.
That's right.
All right. Let me get some more of these calls. Appreciate you checking in with me, brother. Assalamu alaikum. And with that, we'll take more of your calls. 410-761-1592. And haven't heard a response from one U.S. Senator, black or white, Democrat or Republican. John McCain, who can go overseas and meet with the Syrian rebels. You're talking about probably the greatest traitor since Benedict Arnold and John McCain. But nevertheless, haven't heard no response from a senator, from a congressman, congresswoman, from any of these fake white liberals that seem to be concerned about U.S. military families who are first on the front line and then first in the unemployment lines when they come back home. So they can't just talk about post-traumatic stress syndrome when it used to be called shell shock syndrome, supposedly. But what about those civilians, man, and their families? And this is a case that should be taken to the world court, not tried in the United States military, but to the world court. And that's why America didn't want to sign on to the ICC or any of the world courts, because they know that if those U.S. military men and women are going to be charged, then that means that those who sent them there, as we saw in Nazi Germany, from the President of the United States, whether it's Barack Obama, George Bush, could be charged as well as war criminals for their crimes against humanity right now. But let me come back to the lines. 410-761-1592. Good afternoon, caller. You're on the State of the City.
Good afternoon, Brother Aaron. How are you?
I'm good, brother. Thoughts and comments. Have you heard anybody talking about this case, brother?
No, sir, brother. And I'm going to tell you something, man. As a former combat veteran, man, look here, that subhuman individual.
Yes, sir.
I wouldn't even call him a veteran. I would just call him somebody that managed to slip through the cracks.
Yes, sir. Right.
You said a mouthful when you said it should be going before the world court, as they did with the Nuremberg trials.
Nuremberg trials of course, 1948, and what happened to the Jews in Germany and others in Germany as well. Not just members of the Jewish community, but the international Bible students who were called Jehovah's Witnesses, the Gypsy community, the Catholics, and others, of course, that were rounded up and killed as well. Because oftentimes there are those that just want to talk about the members of the Jewish community, but we got to talk about the sea of humanity that were killed in Germany at that time, brother. But please continue.
Oh, yes, sir, brother. Most definitely, man. You had a whole array of folks other than Jews, brother.
Yes, sir.
But another point I wanted to touch on, man, as we both allude to, we agree with, the U.S. policy, man, is to create chaos and restore order. And along with that is sex, aggression, rape, and murder. I mean, this is just, you would think that we're back in the medieval times, but it's just all a function of history and their ideology and mentality.
Yes, sir.
So, brother, keep up the good work, man.
Promise
you
I
put
will.
that pressure on them, brother.
Yes, sir. Thank you for checking in, brother. All right? Peace. And with that, we'll take more of your calls, 410-761-1592. And I think the final call for being one of the few newspapers, I think, that have kept us up to date with the case of Sister Lavina Johnson. If time permits, I'll play a clip talking about her case, who was a black woman in the military, was raped, sodomized, beaten brutally, and, of course, was killed, and her body was set on fire as well. And, again, to my knowledge, that happened when President Bush was the president, but there's been no truth and reconciliation of getting the truth out regarding what happened to that young sister. So imagine that story and take it and multiply it in the military toward black women and white women and Hispanic women, and then take it and multiply it to the civilian populations where United States troops are being, of course, deployed. And then many of them come back home and never tell you what happened over there. The Westmores and the others that you want to lift up as some heroes. If you only knew what they really did, you wouldn't think about using that word hero with some of them. And that's why they got to be anesthetized with so much drugs and everything else, because their mind is not playing tricks on them, but their mind is talking to them. And those children and those women that they sodomized and they raped are talking to them in the deep consciousness of their sleep. Why did you do this to me? So you can't turn it on over there and then turn it off when you get back over here. Don't think it doesn't work that way. And let me come back to the line and take more of your thoughts, questions, comments. I know it's not a popular subject matter because you want to rally around the flag. You want to be a star-spangled Negro. You want to be a star-spangled slave in 2013. But they'll do it to them today. And they'll do it to your children tomorrow and your women tomorrow. They just be wearing some other uniforms. They won't be United States military uniforms. There'll be perhaps some so-called peacekeepers operating in your communities and in your streets, as they've been doing in Haiti and other countries as well. But let me come back to the lines, 410-761-1592. Good afternoon, caller. You on the State of the City.
Hello.
How you doing, my elder?
Wonderful.
Good. Thoughts, comments?
Well, it's typical of them.
Typical?
Typical.
So almost like a rite of passage. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying.
Okay, they do it just because they were bored, as one of the soldiers said.
Well, I'll tell you, it's in them. All around the world is destroyed.
Yes, sir.
I mean that my God will destroy them, will destroy them, because they is not a part of this earth, but a part of this our nation.
Yes, sir.
Our universe.
Right.
Therefore, they're outside of that and they act like that. They act that way. So what we can do, we can pray to our God. I pray to the black God.
Yes, sir.
To send down a plague to destroy all the animals, so they be scum of the earth. Thank you.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you for checking in now. And with that, we'll take more of your calls, 410-761-1592. Talking about, again, this, I wouldn't want to call him a serviceman, I guess, this animal in the United States military, again, 39 years old, so he wasn't no young 18, 19, 20-year-old, found guilty of killing 16 Afghan villagers yesterday, but he didn't receive the death penalty. No word from FLOTUS, the First Lady of the United States of America. No word from POTUS, as some of you say, the President of the United States of America. No word from one senator, one congressperson, black or white, Democrat or Republican. So what message are they sending to the people of the world? What message are they sending to those in the Middle East, to those in the Middle West, to those in Central Asia, of Afghanistan and other countries? That your life doesn't matter. With that, let me come back to the lines, 410-761-1592. Good afternoon, caller. You're on the State of the City.
How you doing, Dad?
I'm good, brother. How are you?
Yeah.
Good.
This is just why, as long as this country exists, we will always be a target of the people from the Middle East because of.
Go ahead. I lost you, brother. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
This is the only time this has happened.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Right.
And when we have something like 9/11 that happened, and we see the tears from American people, but yet can ignore when we go over to another nation or another country and do exactly the same thing.
Yes, sir.
And our leaders turn the face the opposite way and ignore it.
That's right.
Like you said, this is the biggest story out yesterday.
That's right. And this morning.
And this morning.
That's right.
And if you didn't have a microscope or binoculars or whatever, you didn't see it mentioned or heard from nobody today nor yesterday.
Yes, sir. That's right, brother.
It's sad, man.
Complete cover up of what we've seen going on, brother. So,
absolutely, man.
Yes, sir.
You know?
Right.
And like you said, man, this stuff is taught.
Right.
This stuff is taught, man.
Yeah.
You know, you don't go. You're not born, man, to go to another country and just kill civilians and children,
That's
brother.
right. That's right, brother. Yes, sir. Clearly, man.
You know.
Right.
You want this kind of stuff, man.
Yeah, and you heard one soldier say he came back with a trophy. That's where he looked at it, as a trophy.
Absolutely.
Yes, sir. All right, brother.
So, it's a sad day in America, man. It really is, man.
Yes, sir. All right.
You'll never be able to rest comfortably as long as this America is going on.
All right. Appreciate you checking in, brother. All right, man. Peace. And we'll go back to this clip, then we'll come back to the line. Take more of your thoughts. Questions.
To a long litany of murder and mayhem perpetrated on a late-night rampage through 2 Afghan villages. When the judge asked why he killed 16 civilians, Bales hesitated for a moment, then replied, "I've asked myself that question 1,000,000 times since then. There's not a good reason in this world for doing the horrible things I did." On March 11, 2012, Bales, who was on his 4th combat deployment and had twice been wounded in action, allegedly drank alcohol with fellow soldiers and took prescription drugs and steroids. He was reportedly despondent over the state of his marriage. He crept out of the U.S. outpost in the Panjwai district of Kandahar province. Bales went from house to house, shooting, stabbing, and clubbing members of civilian families in their homes. Most of the victims were women and children. In one home, an elderly woman fought with Bales in an apparent attempt to protect her family. He killed her. He set some of the bodies on fire. 11 other Afghans were shot but survived. Bales answered, "Yes, sir," in a clear voice, as military court judge Colonel Jeffrey Nance asked him whether he was guilty of each charge. By pleading guilty and admitting to all of the charges, Bales will likely escape the death penalty. A separate hearing will be held in August to determine whether he will be sentenced to life with or without the possibility of parole. If Bales' lawyers convince a military jury to allow him the chance of release, his sentence could turn out to be surprisingly light.
After serving 10 years of his sentence, he's eligible. There's no guarantee of parole, obviously, but he will begin his eligibility for parole after serving 10 years.
Bales did not make any apology on Wednesday for his crimes. His lawyers say he will do so at a later date. Rob Reynolds, Al Jazeera, Joint Base Lewis McChord, Washington.
Not one of your major news outlets have even talked about this story. But let me go to this clip before we wrap up, talking about the Lavina Johnson story that many of you may not know about. But I think the final call for keeping the information coming forward in one of the recent editions, not this edition, but last week's edition of Our Sister Who Was Killed. But this is the trailer of the movie or documentary entitled The Silent Truth, and it's all on the internet. You can Google it and YouTube in terms of, again, U.S. Army girls raped. And this is just on those in the military that you can talk about, but there's civilians as well that are finding themselves. This is at a time when they're having hearings in Washington, D.C., and you see very few women are even at the table. It's mostly white men, elderly white men. They're more likely to be abuse victims of some priests and those in the Boy Scout than perhaps those in the military. But their job is to minimize the damage in terms of what they're doing right now with these hearings going on in Washington, D.C. But I know they got you worrying about a heckler with First Lady Michelle Obama. But let me go to this clip from this documentary entitled, again, The Silent Truth, the Lavina Johnson story.
And he said, "Are you Linda Johnson, mother of Private Lavina Lynn Johnson?" And I said, "Yes, I am. What do you want?" And he said, "We regretfully inform you that your daughter, Private Lavina Lynn Johnson, is dead." And I lost it.
He said, "I got the impression that they said Lavina committed suicide." I said, wait a minute. Shot in the head, committed suicide. He said, right. I said, Lavina carried around an M16